Great. Thanks everyone for joining us for another community committee meeting. This is for August. Wow, I'm exposing myself there. I usually go up to my Mac toolbar and look as I'm saying that, and it's changed in macOS 11. It's August
20th.
something Thursday.
20th.
Thank you.
You're living on the bleeding edge.
Yeah. And it almost seems like we lose you sometimes, unless you're thinking over it.
Initiative updates, other updates. Oh, I must have dipped. My internet must have died there. Sorry for a sec. Yeah. So, do we have any updates? Initiative updates or other updates?
Just the one. I do have a quick update. Past couple weeks, website redesign. A lot of progress. A lot of things have been done. A lot of merging. Like a lot more asynchronous activity. I've been very happy because there's a lot more people getting involved, and that's what we need. We have the meeting today at 2 p.m. So I am hoping that we do have a lot more participation in that, where we can actually tackle some of the issues and get merge requests closed, like pull requests closed. Besides that, there is no other updates on my end.
Glad to hear it, though.
Can someone resend me a reoccurring calendar invite for that meeting? I don't seem to have it right now. Unless there isn't one.
I can add you to it.
Cool. Any other initiative updates?
I can add you to it.
Okay, great.
I can give the update for the mentorship initiative. In our last meeting, we worked on finalizing the blog post announcing the position for the examples initiative. We also worked on finalizing the code challenge for that opening. Those should be ready within the next week or by our next meeting. And we expect to be receiving applicants for that position in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Also, we acquired a new member for our initiative, or we're trying him out. It's a person that David knew from another project he works on. His name is Alex, and he just attended his first meeting last week. And I have with me today Adamola, who was our mentee from going through our process, and he has joined the team. And he is, this is his first ComCom meeting, and we're going to be taking turns, he, I, David, and probably Alex eventually, on giving these initiative updates.
Nice.
Excellent. Welcome.
And that's it.
Great. Tierney's having some internet trouble, so I'll help kind of drive some of these things. I don't think we have much of an agenda list today, but regardless, let's stick with the initiative updates. Are there any other updates from initiatives or anything? If not, I can jump into the cross-project council updates. Lots of stuff going on there. We are amidst the election for what we're calling the community seat, the secondary CPC board director seat. The way it's set up, we have the primary seat is elected from regular members of the cross-project council, and the secondary seat is open to anyone who is what we call an active OpenJS collaborator. And the definition of that is in the repo, but it's essentially if you are working in a project or in the cross-project council's work or any of the sort of related spaces, then you're a OpenJS collaborator and are eligible for the seat. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 people stepped up, and they're all really great people, active, engaged folks who are I'm really glad to see such a great roster of people who nominated. I believe that is ongoing. The voting ends on Monday, I think. Voting members for the Cross Project Council will be voting. We decided that that would be the best thing because that's representation across all of the projects equally, or equally as we've defined it. And so we'll have some news on that next meeting. Also making some progress on the code of conduct work. We had a working meeting last week that was productive. And so I think we are working out some of the initial hurdles and then can start to really document things and move forward there. There are a couple of sticking points, like essentially what does an escalation path mean and things like that. So there's progress there, which is great. What was the other thing I was thinking about earlier?
I think I'd mentioned on the escalation path one. I think we had consensus on what to go in. So
yeah. And you want to describe it briefly, Michael, or you want me to?
It was based on discussions that Jory had with Tierney as the suggestion, and it's basically the concerns with the escalation path were around, if somebody was, for example, banned from a project or something like that, then that would be overruled. And so it's the clarifications are around that it's the escalation is really only there for cases where the reporters or the people, the reportees or whatever that you want to call that group, feel that it wasn't addressed properly, in which case the foundation can be involved and work with the project, hopefully come to a good resolution. So it made sense to me, I think, and it kind of like, I can't really see that the foundation saying to a project, no, you have to take a person back that you don't want to work with would work, versus there's something happened, and it's those kinds of things are serious enough that if it's not dealt with properly, you do want to have that escalation path and some more help and discussion with the foundation's involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm as the person who brought this up as a concern while doing onboarding for Electron, I'm relatively happy with that. Like, the concern is like, cool, if Node or Electron bans someone for being a racist or something. I mean, there's I assume that the CPC wouldn't force us to unban them, but the way it was kind of asserted, it was a possibility, and that's not really a possibility that I was okay with or comfortable with, I guess. Just because it kind of I brought this up in the other meeting. This very much feels like states' rights, which feels like a weird topic to me, and that's definitely not what I'm going for. But it's a community safety thing, and it was something I wanted to make sure we got right. So
yeah,
I'm happy with the progress there.
Yeah, I'm glad. And I think community safety is really the guiding principle there, right? We don't want to be an appeals court for offenders, but we want to make sure that the community feels safe and that any concerns they have are adjudicated, thoroughly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good progress that we are all on the same page there and can document some things there and related to that. Cool. So I think one other thing I'll mention is we meet weekly at the Cross Project Council. I always hope that we have less work and don't need to meet weekly, but it continues on at a pace. We're trying a new time that is a little more European friendly and maybe beyond. So we're going to meet at 1400 UTC and 1800 UTC. For East Coasters, that's 10 and 2 and
what was that? 1400 UTC. What was the other one?
1400 and 1800.
Okay.
I commented on the previous issue that asked about an earlier time, and then I just pasted it in Slack to make sure it's visible. We'll want to promote that before next week's meeting, which would be the first 1400 time slot. So I want to raise awareness there. I feel like there's something else that I'm missing, but I can't remember what it is. I don't know. Do you have anything else, Michael, or anything from the board?
I'll just add this tomorrow actually is the board meeting. I don't know of any outstanding asks from the Node project in particular. We'd had a vote on some at the CPC level for some change. Yeah, I'm not getting the words out today. A small change to the charter for the CPC that was done through email and confirmed. And the only other one that's sort of outstanding that I know of is the collaboration network proposal, where there's some discussion and some clarification we need to add in terms of the recommendation for the default license to be used.
Yep. And wow, okay, my brain's not working either. I had something to add and now I just totally forgot it. Good times. Shoot, yeah, totally lost it. If I think of it, I'll bring it up later. Oh yes, now I remember. The other thing I guess worth mentioning, well, first of all, we've got some new members at CPC, which is great. Mary Marcini from the Node.js, got a couple other people nominated that, we leave them open for a week, but I'm glad to see more people getting involved. And then we added a new project into the incubation process, AJVJS, JSON validator. So that's cool too. So I think that's most of the news. Cool. So anything else before we get into our agenda without any agenda items? And if so, or if not, what should we talk about? Any particular issues that are open that are not on the agenda? I'm thinking of one in particular.
So I do have just one quick update that I missed the window. Like my brain took a little bit it was a little too slow for the updates. I just wanted to do a quick update on examples. I'm working on reviewing the IBM example. So I went through and created a bunch of examples or issues requesting examples for various platforms that I know have employees who would probably come and write those examples, because that's part of the goal, is to kind of bridge the gap between Hello World and deploying a static app or a SPA rendered on AWS with S3 buckets or whatever, like bridging the gap between Hello World and the full Node experience. So I went through and created a bunch of issues. The IBM folks have been super helpful in that. I have been trying to make time to review the examples there. Unfortunately, I have been stacked on other things I have to prioritize. But there are two examples. So there's one from a Node. I believe he's a TSC member, but one of the core contributors / maybe TSC members from IBM. And yes,
Yep.
He is.
And he submitted a Express example, and then there's an IBM static or IBM Cloud Functions, I think is the name, example that's very comprehensive, and just trying to help get that into a shape that is the same as the structure of the repo, but it should be relatively low barrier. So excited to move forward on those. So I just wanted to make sure to give that update. Any questions on that one before I answer the other half of Joe's question?
I'll just ask really quickly.
Yep.
I think Matt who did the Cloud Function stuff, he pulled in a different direction at the moment. So if there are updates, maybe just mention me and I'll help to try and get that over the finish line.
Yeah, happy to help work with you on that. At all.
Excellent.
Cool. So the agenda item thing. One we do have. I'll just speak since my internet seems to be being okay. We do have the chairperson election. I created that 3 days ago, so that is currently sitting in the ComCom repo. It does have the CC agenda label on it, but I did not go through and do the copy paste into the agenda, so my bad. So yeah, there is the agenda thing or the election thing open. If you are a ComCom member and interested in being chairperson, please feel free to self-nominate. So that's there. And then there is an additional issue, which is the one that I created a few minutes after that one. That's about inactivity in the ComCom and its future. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but like, it just discussing some of the points I've been thinking about for a while here. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tierney. I think that we should definitely spend some time on that issue. I just maybe wanted to quickly check in on another issue before we get into that one.
Sure.
So renaming the default branch in this repository. I think you've got a couple of responses, but I wanted to just highlight that for folks. Not responses, but like thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yeah.
So for folks who want to just take a peek, I pasted it into the chat. I just wanted to highlight that before we moved on to the bigger issue.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so if there's 2 ComCom members who thumbs up it. Just okay. Now there's 3. So if we could just get a thumbs up on that. It's like I can do this in 10 seconds. I've done it 100 times at this point. It's pretty easy and not going to really impact anything.
Well, let me ask you, what is the actual impact? Do people who have the repository clone need to like delete and
you would just pull down the main branch. You don't need to delete anything. I don't know about forks. I don't know how the interaction is there, but I assume it's pretty straightforward. I've not seen any pain. You do have to retarget PRs, so they're like the 2 open PRs right now are, I assume, targeting master. I would do that as part of it. Previously, they did not have support for GitHub Pages. We don't use that, but they also ship that. So if that's something we did use, that'll get fixed. All of our I don't think we have any actions right now. But if we did have actions, you would need to just use the default branch rather than master, or hard code it into main. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Yeah. If and when you make that switch, maybe let me know, and we can both just kind of mess around with it and see if anything pops up.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. So on to the bigger issue that you had mentioned, issue 639. This is something that I know has been bothering Tierney for a while, and he and I both discuss it regularly. I had commented not long before the meeting that Tierney and I were having a regular kind of meeting. It was actually called ComCom Revitalization because we both been thinking about this. So I think there's just some concern about activity and making sure that it continues to make sense to have a community committee and overseeing the initiatives that are under its purview and general activity in the space. And I think it's activity, but it's also like, I guess this relates to activity. We need to go through and update documentation and things like that as well. There's work to be done to kind of sort of spring cleaning or dusting off or freshening lots of documentation in ComCom as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Tierney? Do you want to kind of sum up?
Yeah. So it's just like one other thing. This is, I think, generally a problem in Node and how Node is set up. So I don't think this is a ComCom specific thing. Like, I don't think it's specifically our fault, but like there's a few things about how we've set up ComCom and how Node is set up that lend to inactivity and like I don't want to say like exponential growth, but like something along those lines. There's a word that I can't think of at all. But basically, like, one of the fundamental things when IOJS was starting, which for those who aren't familiar, I'm feeling old now. For those who aren't familiar, IOJS was a fork of Node, and that's where basically all of our current practices in Node came from. IOJS merged back into Node for Node 4. And that's when the Node.js Foundation was created, which got merged into the JS Foundation, is now the OpenJS Foundation. So all of our practices, or almost all of them, except for some things like initiatives, are from IOJS. And one of the challenges, or one of the fundamental values that I just had was like, if you come and do the work, cool, you're in, and then we don't ever remove you. So like, or we don't ever kind of audit that like retroactively and address like inactivity. And like that was definitely impactful in evangelism, because we had a bunch of people who were interested for a bit and then weren't able to continue. And so it literally became just me. And I think that has kind of spread throughout the project. That's a different subject, but I think there were some attempts to address that in ComCom. So in our, I believe it's the charter, it might be governance, but in one of the two, there is, the check membership. The chairperson is to check membership every 6 months with members. In reality, that's something I've done generally. I don't know if Adam did it. I'm not sure, but I know that I've done that as often as I can. I generally don't do 6 months. I do inactive. So folks who are like, haven't been around or haven't been participating, I, ping them and see, if they're interested in continuing. We've had some of the folks who have stepped back because of that. Just because they, realized that they didn't have time anymore and they wanted to do that. But like, we've also had folks who stay on, and that's totally fine. That's how the governance works right now. But like rethinking that and like considering activity and like automating that basically, is because like the requirement there is, if they say yes, cool, they're still a member. And that's in perpetuity. So like considering inactivity and stuff like that, is also something we tried to do with originally, and I believe we moved away from that a bit, because of how one of our values is like code commits aren't contributions. Like that's not the only way to contribute, and so it's kind of hard to define that. I think we're in a better spot with that now, but there's a lot of stuff around that, and I think that's one area that we really need to kind of refresh. Another is just cleaning up, like Joe said, cleaning up the docs. Like there's a lot of outdated or incorrect or somewhat broken information. One of the things I've tried setting up, and I don't think it's going to work for us right now because we have like 700 links to GitHub, but is markdown link checking, just to make sure that old links aren't broken. There are definitely broken links, but we're currently getting rate limited by GitHub when we run it, like severely rate limited. So I don't know if the checking will work, but going through and fixing old links or fixing sections that just are objectively not true anymore. Like for quite a while there, in the README, there was a section of like, here's how to become an observer, despite us not having the observer class anymore. And it like linked to an issue that like that was a good example of how to like create that issue to become an observer. And people would comment on that saying like, hey, I want to be an observer, which is fair. Like I can see how that was maybe potentially a little bit misleading, if like English isn't your first language or something. But like we that was in there for quite a while after, and we were still getting comments after. So like that kind of basic content maintenance is something that I think we can, we need to do a little bit of, and maybe set every 6 months we go through and do a cleaning or something along those lines. So yeah, that's generally like, it's just kind of upkeep. And I mean, another thing is, I don't know how other ComCom members feel, and I don't know, like I would love to hear from y'all, but like I end up doing a lot of maintenance of the repo, so like going and closing stale issues, or merging the PRs. Like I think I end up doing most of that, and I'm fine doing that work, but I'm not sure if that's because like I am the one who, like, I don't know if it's like a perceived expectation, or if it's just like, oh yeah, he'll do it, or if it's just not thought of at all. I don't know. So that's maybe something I like to get insight on, because like I want to make sure that I'm not excluding folks in that way. Because like I guess I don't want it to be that I'm taking the work from people. And like I want it to be a shared thing. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Would it be would it be beneficial to maybe define the kind of work that we need collectively to be done? Not like so much as in a role-based situation, which I feel like is what you're saying. You think that some people are kind of maybe having the assumption that it falls under your jurisdiction, being like the chairperson, but since we don't necessarily have those kinds of clear roles that like usual organizations have in terms of, I don't know, I'm thinking of like a treasurer and that kind of thing. But I think it would probably be beneficial to make a list of the like usual maintenance that needs to be done and just kind of like checking in on things so that we can have that kind of like chore list and have people self-volunteer for the things that they can handle maybe as just like an initial attempt to kind of even out the workload. And like I know I commented on the issue saying that like I have now the time and availability to take on some of that work so that you're not burdened from it. But I see what you're saying in terms of you don't want people to feel like they're not able to do certain things. I feel like maybe people just don't know what they can and can't do.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I think documenting that is probably a good thing, and potentially that could be part of us going through and cleaning up all of our documentation as it currently stands, because there's a lot of outdated stuff and stuff like that, and so having that kind of update bundled into that, I think would be good as a way to kind of agree on how to move forward from there. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a great idea.
And what about the idea of, maybe an off-week meeting too, to just work on some of these things? I mean, Tierney and I started a document that has a list of things that we found and some ideas and even some things kind of potentially outside of ComCom, like the nodejs.org/get involved.
Together.
This is definitely outdated, by the way. Like this was from the first meeting we did, and there's like redesign had no champion at the time. So just like caveat there that this is slightly outdated.
Yeah, I haven't shared that HackMD yet. If you want me to, I will. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you could.
So,
yeah.
So here's a HackMD that Tierney and I did 3 months ago. So yeah, like they said, it's a little bit outdated, but there are some ideas here, and maybe we take this and start to break it into issues, or maybe one issue with a checklist, or I'm not sure the best way to manage things that we're finding. And I think some of this is even beyond some of the core things that Tierney was mentioning, but yeah, thinking about ways to improve. I think it's interesting. I'll just say really quickly, Michael, one interesting thing that Tierney and I have found ourselves discussing often is that ComCom's different than other spaces, because like the TSC has TSC work around technical questions and work, whereas the ComCom is really meant to sort of oversee its initiatives. So like being in the ComCom isn't really as important as getting the work done in the other areas as well. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, there's some specific things here, but the real challenge in my mind, I think, is like that we need active champions who push on the areas that I think are not being pushed forward, right? And that's the fundamental thing, is that we can come up with all sorts of lists of things we'd like to do, but it's more about, how do we encourage people who are, have time and are excited to lead certain areas forward? Because I think everywhere, all the teams, the working groups I'm involved in, there's always somebody who's helping to push them forward, make sure the meetings happen. And that's what kind of seems to make the progress come forward. So it'd almost be like, I don't know, on the ComCom side, is it worth, what's the top 2 things that we think really have to happen and we don't have, champions for? Can we then look for champions? Or is it like, these are all nice to things, and if they happen, if somebody shows up and they happen, it's great. If they don't, they don't, right?
Yeah.
Or even is it time to start to think about, I don't know, like I think we'd want to come up with like, here's the things we think are the most important. And, if we haven't managed to get them to work under the ComCom, do they fit at all with the OpenJS CPC? Or, I don't know, like think outside of the box as well in terms of trying to get those important things accomplished.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I think we've generally done the latter model there of identifying things and not having someone who, well, I think one of the challenges we have is, we might have someone who comes in and wants to do a thing. But largely because this is not like, working on Node core work, it's harder to get people to be able to do that in a way that is not like, a tenth of their total time, right? And like a lot of the things we do need to do are more than like, they're basically part-time.
Right.
And so the way to fund that is people's jobs. And that's a thing that I think we've struggled with in getting the people who could do that to come in and do that. So yeah, like I think that's a big struggle for us, in that like we have people who can we having people who can spend a large amount of time on this stuff is not something that's been easy for us. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's our primary challenge. And that's definitely not to say that like the work that people do isn't appreciated or like valuable. I think to see the results that we want to see, there does need to be involvement of people who can spend a lot of time on this, to be able to see them as fast without burning people out or draining them. I think that the velocity thing for us is really important, and it's one of the things we struggle with most.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of like, I think we got to think through, like in that context, it's then, well, what's the impact? Is it that, okay, we'd like this to happen, but if it doesn't, that's fine. So, or is there some critical impact to the project if it doesn't?
Yeah.
Right. And so to kind of like in the role of the ComCom, and it's the same on the technical side with the TSC. There's like lots of strategic initiatives I'd love to see take place, but they require, a champion who has time, and so they kind of happen if somebody does have time, and they don't if they don't.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, are there things that we think should happen that are critical that aren't? And if maybe we can focus on that set to see.
Yeah.
And the others are like, well, that's just the nature of an open source project. We'd love to have more of this, but until there's somebody who has time, that's the way it is.
Yep.
I think that, I generally agree. I think another kind of side to the coin is the on-ramp or the visibility of how you get involved as well too, which, maybe isn't as important because we can talk to people and stuff, but I feel like if things were clearer when some random person came to ComCom about what ComCom is and how to get involved and the status of things. And I don't think it's that far off, but I think it could use some help as well.
Yeah, that's certainly like, if part of the reason we don't have people doing things is because there's some barriers or obstacles, that's a good thing for us to have identified. And, that's the work that the ComCom members who possibly don't have, they're not going to become the champion of one of those things because they don't have the interest or time. It certainly could help if we could focus on removing that part of the side of things, if there's an easy way to do that.
I have a question.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Are there any like prerequisites to helping out on ComCom? Like, does the person need to come from within the Node organization already, or is this something potentially the mentorship initiative could create openings for over time?
So generally the current, I mean, helping out, no. I mean, the current, I believe, documented path is working on initiatives, and then initiatives or people will self-select up into ComCom. But like doing work in the ComCom repo, no. There's like anyone can come and PR stuff and do the work.
Okay, so that could be like their starting point, is to like help work on
Yeah.
some of the stale documents and such.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, working on ComCom stuff as well as initiative stuff for sure. And like, you know, the website redesign is a great example. You know, we got a couple of people there, Divya and Ben, who are, you know, focused on trying to get work done there, but there's a lot of work to get done. And I think, you know, frankly, there's some like management work that needs to happen as well, to really kind of keep the ship moving forward in a great way. So like being able to help people be successful there, I think is also important as one example. But I think there's a lot of opportunity too. You know, there are other things that we've thought about in the past. You know, I wonder about like a content team. You know, we have a social team now, but I wonder about, you know, the Node.js collection has been kind of stale and lingering, and the new website redesign, and should there be more content coming from the, you know, my thinking was that the Node.js website could be a canonical place, and we could have content coming from there and syndicate out to Dev2 and Medium if we want as well. But you know, there's nobody really we would need a few people, I think, to kind of help manage something like that.
That's one that like, and maybe totally may not make sense, but that's one where I wonder, like, is there potentially a larger group across the foundation projects that would have an interest in that area?
You mean at the OpenJS level, have
yeah, like a content team, and you know, individuals might focus more on content for specific projects, but kind of as a, you know, if you span projects, you might have a chance of getting a few more people and therefore a bit more critical mass. And I just find it's like the teams or working groups that I've been on, once you drop below a certain size, it's harder to keep that momentum going. Whereas if you have a good number of members and, you know, you get together, it sort of re-energizes people, they go off, they take some actions. And so I'm, you know, that the thought just comes to mind is like, maybe you get a slightly bigger group of people by looking at it that way, and you get more momentum, right? And you get some sharing. Like that's something where, like, you know, what kind of content works or how to deliver the content. I can see some synergy across the projects as well as with the foundation staff in terms of promoting it. And
we discuss a lot of that stuff at the marketing committee meetings, which everybody, that's an open meeting. So projects, members are all encouraged to attend. So that might be a way to, you know, to discuss some of those things. If, you know, if that's kind of the audience that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
So that's where, like, I was kind of, I guess I didn't say it specifically, but like kind of going back to what does the ComCom want to accomplish? And then looking at how to accomplish that goal. You know, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's within a ComCom working group, maybe it's something else like what we just talked about.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was trying to do for I had to make sure I wasn't muted. That's kind of what I was trying to do with the OKR stuff that we did at the OpenJS World in November. That, you know, maybe we didn't get as high attendance as we had hoped, or I had hoped. But you know, working on that kind of stuff, I think that's potentially a good way to do that. Just trying to get that stuff out there. And like, you know, set goals for ourselves that we collectively agree on and want to do, and refining that every year, maybe every 6 months, and saying, did we accomplish this? How were we successful? What can we learn from what we did? And then refining that into, okay, what do we want to do in the next year? I think that's kind of the goal with that.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I shared it in the chat, and one of the 4 objectives is really focused on essentially content. Create a positively impactful content. Key result: publish 5 practical tutorials with community members, run 3 AMAs with folks from our ecosystem, and feature 5 non-core repositories in various officially published media.
So the AMAs have happened.
Is that what you're saying?
Have, yeah. I think, right? Like Rachel's been helping to drive drive AMAs.
We've had a few.
Yeah, and those are available to all projects. However, if there's an interest in Node doing specific ones, we can discuss that. Although there have been Node specific ones.
Yeah, I mean, I know I was one.
Yeah.
And there's probably been a couple others as well, right? So.
Yeah, I want to say that the Node project has probably done the most out of all of the projects, and they're all very well attended. We get good participation and replay views, so it seems like a good outlet for this community.
And I just, for what it's worth, on that objective, I believe that was largely focused on Node.js collection, and the tutorials make sense in that context, and I think the non-core repositories was relatively intentionally vague in that it could be like Twitter or the blog, right? And so yeah, that's we have evolved out of or away from collection. So like that, that would be something we look back on of like, well, we did these things with the foundation, which worked well, but this is like, we've evolved this and maybe don't want to structure it in the same way because this thing we assumed would be around is not around. So yeah, and there's like OKRs from or KRs. There are KRs about like views and stuff, which are not something that really match what we currently do or how things have evolved. So
yeah, maybe as a first step, we should revisit these and then align the work that we think needs to happen out of them.
Yeah.
In addition to some housekeeping, I think.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Are we doing another collaborator summit, Michael? Like, are we doing the EU one?
There has not been any discussion on that. That has
two.
Yeah, normally we do 2, and that is something I've thought about once or twice, have done nothing about. My preference would still to say be yes.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't think we should do the same system we did last time. I would be happy to share some of the context around like what Electron just did that worked very well. But yeah, I would recommend that we don't use the same system as last time. Like, I was not really able to participate.
I assume still remote though, right?
Yes, yeah, still remote for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the foundation was entirely pleased with it. I mean, Rachel's here, maybe.
Putting you on the spot, Rachel.
No, we've been collecting a lot of feedback, and you are perfectly aligned with what we're doing.
I would be curious about the Electron experience, but that's probably for another call or something.
Yeah, I mean the TLDR is we did Zoom plus I think it's called Miro. Yeah, Miro, like Miro.com, which was just virtual whiteboards that give you sticky notes and you can use those. And we kind of did the whole structure around that. It worked pretty well.
Cool.
But yeah, so, I could have Jacob Groundwater come and talk about that if you wanted. But that's, it worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, and I think it would be great to do one, potentially around NodeConf.eu or sometime in that sort.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know, Rachel, you were active in the summit planning group, right? Was there any discussion of doing a second one there?
I would have to double check with Jory. She was really leading
Okay.
that, but I know that historically that has been what we've done. So
yeah, and I wonder about, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but we did the last one in what, June?
mhm.
I wonder about doing one in a time that people might be less active at work, because I feel like maybe around the time of NodeConf.eu, there might be a lot going on. But maybe like January or February, the dead of winter, people might have more free time or something. I don't know if that's accurate, but I wonder about timing. Doesn't necessarily need to be tied to the event anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree with the tying part. Like that may mean that if you're trying to go to the event and do the collaborator summit, it makes sense for travel, but may actually be a detriment if it's, if you're not traveling.
Yeah.
I think the biggest to me, the biggest challenge is the time zone, and that you not having everybody there. There's people who just couldn't participate or didn't participate who normally would have. And even those who could because of time zones, you don't have that same focus of, I got to be there I'm there for a week, and so I'm going to focus on that. But
yeah.
We are approaching time. I guess we should ask, is there anything anyone else wants to bring up that is either in this subject or outside of it? Any announcements or anything like that?
I do have one quick thing I just remembered that I would like to bring up, and that is that in one of the PRs that we had on website redesign, I did get asked that is there a project manager or someone as such that is helping manage the whole project, and right now we don't, and I thought that me and Joe has talked about this before, and I think that having someone as a project manager would be a benefit, but given availability, and it's very time consuming right now, it's just me and Ben driving it, but having some overlay structure from ComCom, at least, that would be some point of guidance to us, so we are more organized and managed in a proper way.
I think I'm glad y'all are open to that. Like, I'm really glad to hear that. So for context, if there's someone who's willing to do that, we should absolutely try to help enable that however we can. One of the pieces of context that I guess I'd like to share is we definitely tried to do that early on in ComCom and had very little success getting people who were able to do that in a successful way, or a way that they were happy with. So I if there's someone, absolutely, I am happy to spend extra time on trying to help make that work and get that through. I would not hold your breath, is I guess the best I can say, just because of experiences with how that's gone in the past. I also realize I'm completely foreshadowing and or not foreshadowing, but being super negative. So apologies. I will, as I said, I'm more than happy to help enable that however I can.
Yeah, and frankly, I've been dying to jump in and help there, but it's just I don't have a lot of free time, and two, I think the meeting time directly conflicts with another important meeting I have, and I've even asked around internally because we have a lot of Gatsby and TypeScript folks internally, but I haven't. I'm scrolling right now to see if I've gotten any responses, but I haven't seen anything.
So yes, if I'm happy to chat with you and see what we can do to do that. But yeah, I am hopeful that we can make it happen. I am.
Sure.
I just don't want to overset expectations, I guess.
Two ideas that I have. I guess one particularly related to this is maybe we have an off meeting bi-weekly or whatever that Tierney and me and Rachel, I think you've expressed interest, and Divya and Ben kind of get together and huddle and see where things are and make sure we're staying focused on like MVP kind of related tasks. Obviously open source, sometimes people are going to just do what they are drawn to, but if we can try to focus on getting some hurdles, clearing some hurdles, then maybe we can make more progress and make the path for people to help more clear and beneficial. I'd be open to that. And then similarly, as I suggested in the issue around inactivity in ComCom, and thanks, Rachel Romoff, maybe we should have a regular meeting to work on ComCom related things, to start with the OKRs and go from there too.
Yeah, I think that would actually be a good step, a first step in the right direction. And then as we progress or build, we can, see what next steps to take. And in the meantime, if, as Tierney, you mentioned, I think that, you've been helping us, and I'm very grateful for that, because it was just me and Ben a couple of weeks ago trying to run everything and do stuff as well. And we were kind of lost. But now that we have more people involved, I think, that gives us more confidence in moving in the right direction. So definitely let's set up a meeting, and that would be great, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think if we could highlight like MVP related issues and have like a project board and drive people directly to that too would be great, to really get some movement in the right direction.
Cool. Sounds good. I have to drop as well. So
yeah. So maybe we should have an issue for a ComCom related off meeting, and maybe an issue in website redesign about a project management.
Do you want to take that, Joe?
Yeah, I'll do both of those.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joe.
everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.